I'm Jeremy Collado.
Julianna. I'm Deana, Desilva.
I'm Nestor, Pantoja.
So our government policy case was that California should implement early releases for minors charged as adults. Alright. Imagine your little brother, little sister, or even little nephew commits a violent crime in the heat of the moment. They're not even 18 yet, but they get charged as adults, consequently getting 10, 20, 30, or even 30 or more years in jail. Maybe it wasn't their intention to hurt anyone. Maybe they weren't thinking. Should a minor be charged as an adult really have to carry out the whole adult sentence? Of course not. That's why California should implement early releases for minors charged as adults. California should allow minors charged as adults to be released earlier by cutting their sentence from anywhere from 30 to 60% earlier, depending on the crime committed and the age of the minor when the crime was committed. Harm 1. Unconstitutional. Not giving minors charged as adults the opportunity to be released from prison early is cruel and unusual punishment because their brains are not fully developed, which is unconstitutional according to the 8th Amendment. According to an article titled The Adolescent Brain, written by doctors, impulse control, planning, and decision-making are largely frontal cortex functions that are still maturing during adolescence. The article was written by Dr. Weinberger, Elovag, and Dr. Gia, two very qualified doctors in the field of neuroscience. Not allowing minors charged as adults to be released early is cruel and unusual punishment because their frontal cortex is clearly not fully developed until they are several years older, which makes it less likely for them to make smart decisions. Giving cruel and unusual punishment is unconstitutional. If that continues, then it will set a precedent for more unconstitutional punishment to occur. Harm 2. Minors charged as adults who serve their sentences as adults are less likely to reoffend than their counterparts who serve shorter sentences. According to the American Bar Association, in an article titled "Should Juveniles Be Charged as Adults in Criminal Justice Systems?" They cited data from 15 states which show that minors charged as adults who serve their sentences as adults are rearrested 82% of the time, and their counterparts a whopping 16% less. California should implement early release for minors charged as adults because the lengthy sentences makes them more likely to reoffend. If California were to implement early releases for minors charged as adults, the amount of reoffenders could drop, making us all safer. So our plan is that we must communicate with our state senators, representatives, and governors and tell them that we want a bill that'll cut sentences for minors charged as adults 30 to 60% depending on the crime and the age when the crime was committed. And the plan will be carried out by California senators, representatives, and the governor. And if this plan were to be put in place, it would get rid of the cruel and unusual punishment because the frontal cortex of the minors are not fully developed, hindering their decision-making skills. California would be setting a good example for other states to follow this, getting rid of the unconstitutional punishment. If California implemented the plan of releasing minors early, this is the second solvency, the amounts of minors charged as adults reoffending would lower. And advantage 1, allowing minors to be released early could reduce the rate of the minors who reoffend. According to PBS, 2 large-scale studies indicate that juveniles receive harsher penalties when tried as adults and are not scared straight. In fact, after their release, they tend to reoffend sooner and more often than those treated in the juvenile system. This is an article titled, "Does Treating Kids Like Adults Make a Difference?" And a second advantage is that minors charged as adults are not safe in adult prisons. According to research done by the Bureau of Justice Statistics, youth that are held in adult facilities are at greater risk for sexual victimization.
So you said minors are not safe in adult prisons. Wouldn't it just be better to put them in a different set of prison or prison systems instead of just releasing them all together?
What?
So since you said they're not safe in adult prisons, wouldn't it just be safer to or better to just isolate them in a different?
Isolate them?
Yeah, not isolate them, but separate them from the adults.
That would be expensive and require a lot of money.
Okay. And also, giving minors early release would technically just be releasing, I guess, like criminals into the public. So wouldn't that make it like unsafe for like outside like society basically?
Well, at the time of the crime, these minors, their brains weren't fully developed. They weren't thinking like an adult. Their frontal cortex were not mature. So by the time they get out, they'd be adults and they will hopefully have been rehabilitated.
So now it's the 4 minutes for the network.
Implementing early release for minors charged as an adult is not a problem because it is not ethically needed. California should not implement early release for minors charged as an adult. Minors charged as an adult do not go through cruel punishment, nor does this impact their future. Disadvantage 1, cruel punishment. Being a minor, the adult court may be sympathetic towards them. California should not implement early release for minors charged as an adult. When minors are charged as adults, they are granted the right to a jury trial. With this jury trial, there is an adult court present. In a pathological standpoint, in being a minor, an adult court may hold signs of sympathy towards the minor, which results in a more straightforward sentence. According to estate planning lawyer and attorney Kathleen Michonne states in her article on the juvenile justice system, when juveniles are tried in adult criminal court, that in some jurisdictions where dockets and jails are crowded, the court may be inclined to dispose of the juvenile's case more quickly and impose a lighter sentence. By imposing a lighter sentence amongst minors, the act of being charged as an adult should no longer be deemed as cruel punishment and still allows for a fair trial. Disadvantage 2, impacting their future. By charging minors as adults, it helps advocate in lowering the number of juvenile criminals. California should not implement early release for minors charged as an adult. When the minors are charged as adults, they basically advertise the punishments of a crime to other adolescents and shows that a crime is a crime despite the age you are. According to the contributing editor of Vision Launch, Crystal Lombardo states in her article on World Issues, Pros and Cons of Juveniles Being Tried as Adults, that kids under the age of 18 are not perfect innocents. Many of them begin thinking and acting more maturely. Punishing them for their wrongdoings teaches them accountability, which they can bring with them until they grow old. By teaching minors accountability of their actions, the act of being charged as an adult does not, in fact, put their futures at risk, but to help them and discourage them from committing unlawful acts again.
So you said that the jury would impose a lighter punishment on the minor charged as an adult, right? But it is the judge that decides to charge the minor as adult to switch it to an adult case. So they're treating them as an adult. So why would the jury do that? My question is, how could the jury be the one imposing a lighter sentence?
Well, as I stated, by referencing Kathleen Michonne, the estate planning lawyer and attorney, she states that in some jurisdictions where dockets and jails are crowded, the court may be inclined to dispose of the juvenile's case more quickly and impose a lighter sentence. So in that article, she talks about basically when it's being moved to and when they're charged as adults, they're moved into the court where there's an adult court present.
I have a second question. Do you have any statistics to back up that they get let off
That they get let off easier.
easier?
I mean, that was my That was my evidence.
The lawyer?
Yeah, the lawyer.
Did she provide any statistics?
In her article, possibly.
Okay. No further questions.
The 5-minute refutation.
Okay. So as you guys were saying, I know Nestor, he mentioned having like cyber prisons. It would be really expensive. And also,
I'm supposed to question her, right?
You just said
You
Oh,
did.
did you do that?
you
Oh, I'm
just-
sorry. I'm sorry.
and also like it would be very like the children wouldn't learn because since they're being separated, it's still whatever. I'm gonna forget. Okay, so it does impact their future if we give them shorter times. By the time they get out, if they're there for less time, they'll be able to make more mature decisions as adults because they've learned, and they'll have time because they won't be in prison for so long. And like it said, releasing minors charged early as adult or charged as adults early would contribute to their rehabilitation, helping them to contribute to society, so they wouldn't reoffend. And so, like we said before, like Jeremy said before, children's brains aren't fully developed, so they don't know the decisions they're making, like their decisions. So they shouldn't be charged as adults because they don't have the brain development as adults, and adults know how to make decisions, but they don't know how to make them fully. Oh, that's it.
And then the
Counter contention.
um,
First, counter contention, carrying out full sentences. Minors should not carry out their full sentences, so it reduces the rate of reoffenses. California should not implement early release for minors charged as an adult. According to the Office of Justice Programs, the number of juvenile arrests made in 2012 is over 1 million, which may be alarming, but is actually 37% less than the arrests made in 2003. Based on the Violent Crime Index, aggravated assault has the highest number of arrests, followed by robbery, forcible rape, and murder, and non-negligent manslaughter. If these offenders will be tried as adults and punished to the full extent of the law, they would probably think twice about committing a crime or violating the law, as stated by Green Garage. This study shows that by requiring minors to follow through with their punishments fully, it will show as an example for their peers and other young group members that a crime is a crime and you will be punished regardless. By requiring minors to fully carry out their sentences, this will contribute to setting an example for the rest of the youth groups in our society. Counter contention 2, risking minor safety in adult prisons. There are rulings that protect the safety of juvenile offenders in adult prisons. California should not implement early release for minors charged as an adult. According to Clay Duda in his news article, New Rules Protect Juveniles in Adult Prisons. Duda states that the standard also restricts the placement of juveniles in adult facilities, aiming to protect youth from sexual abuse and limiting contact between youth and adults behind bars through 4 specific requirements. The first requirement being prohibiting the placement of youth in the general adult prison population. Second, eliminating contact between adults and youth in common areas. Third, ensuring youth are under constant supervision. And fourth, limiting the use of isolation for juveniles. Duda explains how these rulings protect inmates, and both juvenile and adult, in correctional facilities on the local, state, and federal level. By implementing these rulings, minor safety in adult prisons are not something we need to be worried about.
And then counter contention 3, minors not being released early results in reoffenders. Releasing minors early will not result in a decreased chance of reoffenders. California should not implement early release for minors charged as adults. According to the National Academy of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, in their consensus study report, Reforming Juvenile Justice, they state that a core function of the juvenile justice system is to prevent reoffending by adolescents who have committed acts that would be considered crimes if committed by adults. Even if the court is an active partner in the broad prevention activities of the community, it will retain the primary responsibility for responding to adolescents who are not prevented from engaging in illegal behavior. Whether imposing sanctions or providing services, the court will continue to determine the type and intensity of interventions for the adolescents and families that come before it. This is significant because they stress the fact that in order to decrease the chances of reoffenders, it is highly dependent on the effectiveness of the court and the system. So by requiring juveniles to proceed with their full sentences, they will get the best of their time served and prevent them from carrying out illegal misconducts once more.
Then the negative conclusion, the 2 minutes.
So the final point is minors charged as adults do not go through full punishment, nor does this impact their future. The court may be sympathetic with them, and it would help decrease the number of juvenile delinquents in the system.
Your 2 minutes.
Not giving minors charged as adults early release is cruel and unconstitutional punishment because it is cruel and unusual punishment to give someone who does not think with an adult brain an adult sentence. Despite what my opponent said, statistics show that lengthier sentences does not help an individual nor society because the reoffense rate is higher if they have a lengthier sentence. If California were to implement this bill, it would allow minors charged as adults not to get off easy, but to rehabilitate and better contribute to society. That's why California should implement earlier releases for minors charged as adults.
Is that